Evet, saygıdeğer katılımcılar, hepinize hoş geldiniz diyorum.
Hello, esteemed guests. Our subject is the effect of day-ahead markets on WPPs. So our first speaker is Kemal Yıldır. Nezray. He is the head of department from Turkish Electricity Transmission Company. And our sales manager from Borsan MBV Energy Partnership, and Burak Kuyan, Energy Director from Doğan Holding. And in order not to lose time anymore, we are make it to the point. And now I'm inviting Nezray to the microphone. Esteemed guests, I salute you all with all my regards. Most of the things were mentioned before, as you all know, and I will present you some data which are current, and I will answer your questions after my presentation. Speaking of Turkish installed capacity of Turkey, it's increasing. It's and we see the wind and thermic, the statistic about hydraulic, thermic, and wind power. And when we see the
renewable energy resources, we can see that 536 of them are thermal and 3,726 megawatts from wind. Now for renewables, we have a total of 10,997. We have 2,057 milliwatts of installed capacity, and the number of power plants 93 currently. This is the list of the type of renewables and the fixed energy prices that will be paid for each of these renewables. For hydroelectricity 7.3, wind 7.3, geothermal 10.5, biomass 13.3, and for solar again 13. Now for renewables, particularly for wind, how do we make the valuation in the system? You will see that I will give you some elaboration on that. Now, in the first column, you can see the renewables price. And for each of these additional power plants, the amount of the energy will be paid by multiplying with the price. But of course, when we are doing this, we consider the generators, the producers on the renewables that will be liable for informing the next day's amount of generation, and the total of these amounts will be reflected to the pricing units. But at the end of the month, these power points production values are measured. Then we multiply it with the amount that goes out from the counter and pay the renewables price. But the capacity would just correspond to the incumbent agency's calculation, and the income or the expenses will be shared amongst the suppliers and the users. Also, we have the producers, where the producers sell their extra production to the distribution companies, and we are just collected the amount that corresponds to this extra amount. And again, when you come to the before day independent prices that are being taken, these will be just taken for every day. And here, the market barter price will be defined. And similarly, we have, of course, before the day, the imbalance that might be resulting from the sales, of course. Let's say in total, if you're speaking about a renewable capacity of 500, independent of the price, if at the end of the month, if the value falls under 500, let's say it's 400, then the distribution companies or the suppliers will be shared in terms of this 100 megawatts of imbalance, and the contrary will may be the case. Let's say if we have a production capacity of 500 megawatts notified, but it's 700 megawatts, so the production is higher. This time there will be a surplus of 200 megawatts. Again, this time this will be distributed or shared amongst the suppliers as revenue, and that is how the renewables mechanism is working for the power plants.
Şimdi 2012, 2013
2012, 13, and 14 market movements are given in this table. And when you look at the first column, we can see 5,395,000, and this is the generation of renewable energy. And in 2013, this was decreased to 2,371,000, and 2014 it was again 3,867,000. Why it is this case? Especially when we compare the prices. And when we look at 2013, there is less capacity, but in 2014 it's a bit increased, but not as much as in the year 2012. And when we look at the prices, this is 143 TL. This was 195 in 2013, and it is 200 in the year 2014. But when we look at the average market barter prices, this was 155 in the year 2012, the same 2013, but look, this is 165. This is less than the renewable market price. There is actually the impact why there is an increase. This is the exchange rate. The foreign exchange rate was high in those years. And another factor causing this is wind and hydro resources are few, but biomass and similar companies are included in the scope of renewable energy resources. You see, there's a comparison again. This white line shows the renewable energy resources prices, average prices, and the red one is the market barter prices. And based on the factors I explained before, this is higher than the other one. Another graph for comparison. Look, this is again the price averages in the blue, and the red line shows the market. Here the prices are always higher, but look at December 2013. Because of the natural gas crisis, there was a price increase, and the market barter price was increased somehow. Another graphic again. Here we this time compare the generation of renewable energy and also the prices, but there is a parallel again slope in here. And thank you very much for your attention. And any questions, I don't know. If you have any question, I'll try to answer. Thank you for this general introduction. Now I would like to continue with Ünal Terzi. He's a member to the member to the board, I'm sorry. I suppose he's going to speak on his seat. Distinguished General Director, I would like to welcome you all, first of all, in the name of TWEA. The subject is about the before-day position of the wind energy power plants and what are their relations actually related to the day-ahead markets and their effects on the wind power plants. And the previous speaker explained the situation in general terms. And also we will listen to two other speakers after me. They will talk about the details. But here I would like to underline something else, especially when I look at the day-ahead market. It is a bit different from the others. Portfolio balancing tool. It is a strong tool. And it is a chance for you to balance your portfolio, actually, a day ahead. And also there is a study going on. This is for in-day market. And this is just real time, 2 hours before you have the chance to reshape your position. You can change your position. Just you have 2 hours, especially this is real time. And this is the market working at hourly basis. And you, for instance, undertake or commit some generation, and you have also consumption, and there has to be a balance, you know. And those are opportunities that are given to you just to have a balance, because, you know, the operators do not like the imbalance. And also this is how can I say? This is actually a balancing practice. Sometimes it is risky for generators. Nazir also explained the mechanism to us. One day before you have generation amount for the next day, and you commit that generation on the website for the next day. But in the meantime, maybe wind. You have a resource, but unfortunately you cannot control. This is the wind. And in the meantime, during the day, it happens differently than your commitment. And as a result, at the end of each month, all those figures are collected and compared. And they look at whether there is commitment undertaken or not. And sometimes you may have some actually risks in here. So the system operator, especially in real time during the day, thanks to this tool, it can be possible for those operators to reshape their position. But on the other hand, there is a resource which you cannot control. This is the wind. You cannot control the wind. As Nazir also explained, as price, the renewable energy resources price, when we look at the yearly averages and compared to spot prices, it's more advantageous. But today, we have such a position that we are comfortable right now, but maybe 5 years later, 6 years later, when there is no more guarantee for purchasing, or when the domestic share for the very beginning of the first years, that is going to be a problem. It is not inevitable. What kind of a problem is waiting for us? First of all, and which is most important one, is that the renewable energy investors are at the side of are not interested in electricity rate. There is a guarantee. There is actually a warranty given, and they are sufficient with this. They are satisfied with this. I'm not, of course, talking about large-scaled companies. They also have different power plants, and they do not have actually a problem of imbalance anymore. But when we are talking about small and medium-scaled operators, don't get accustomed to discomfort because the purchasing guarantee for solar or biogas power plants, if their number is increased, then right at that moment there is a comfort provided by the renewable energy board. This is going to be a problem later. Then we will see actually some complaints, and because there's going to be raise in the prices, and the total sales companies also, they need to reflect these figures to the consumers. And in summary, if we don't have this mechanism, we should get ready for the future. And based on those activities, the generation assumption modules should be developed. Of course, each plant, it's not easy for them to have a module to purchase it and to implement it. Maybe that's going to be a centralized approach and organized from the center. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do not actually estimate your generation, then you will lose any at all. If there is a bilateral agreement, for instance, and if you want to sell your energy, first of all, they look at your generation profile, and also they look at the location of your power plant in terms of wind resource. And in winter or in summer, when it is possible to generate, then you can have a bilateral agreement based on a satisfactory price. Otherwise, the supplier actually will reflect almost 5% of imbalanced risk. This is going to be reflected to you because it's not possible to estimate the generation, and then the supplier thinks that there's going to be 5% risk. So actually, this is going to be reflected to you, I mean, to the price. So this 5% is not a little price. It's not something very little. And also, there is the mechanism responsible for the balance, but in fact, it's not practical in Turkey. But this is wrong. It's not widely used in Turkey, unfortunately. Maybe it's a bit utopic, but this mechanism under, maybe I think it's going to be the role of the public sector, I don't know. Because it's a shame, because we have a resource. This is a local domestic resource. We have it. And price optimization is not a tendency among the investors, and because there is actually a mechanism for actually guarantee, purchasing guarantee. Generation estimation model should be centralized, and the party responsible for the balance, because the participants cannot come together. I suppose there's a need for the organization by the public sector. Those are necessary. And for other aspects, I will leave the floor to my other colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, Ünal. Of course, the public sector is always in favor of solutions and tries to find solutions. But of course, those problems needs to be solved with common sense. So don't need to be actually panic. And now I will leave the floor to Uray. I will talk about the effect of day-ahead markets on the wind energy. First of all, we need to make a decision what type of sales channels we have for wind energy. For day ahead and in day markets, there are actually agreements, and then it's possible to sell the wind energy in the day ahead market. But how it's going to happen in the wind power plants, as also Kemal stated, it's something else. I mean, the mechanism is not totally relevant to the prices, and this is based on estimations, minimum and maximum. And there is the intraday market, and when this market is applicable, then in the intraday market, just before 36 hours, you make the estimation, and it's possible for the companies to improve their positions 2 hours ago. And also there's another option. This is the bilateral agreements, and it's possible to be a group in a group, or also it's possible for you to sell electricity or energy in OTC markets. And then electrical energy can be sold. And in Turkey, we have different platforms, and those platforms can be an option to have bilateral agreements. Another channel for wind energy, again related to bilateral agreements. This is for the sales to actually final consumers. This is B2B and B2C, and it's possible for you to sell your energy to the final customers, but you need to have a generation estimation model, which is very good. And the fourth energy sales channel, which is look like very advantageous right at that moment, it's TWEC. This is actually a mechanism, and you apply until 21st of October. And if you are accepted by the Energy Market Regulatory Board, then it's possible for you, your energy is going to be purchased. This is actually a guarantee of sales, and you have the unit prices defined by the public sector, and you sell your energy over those prices. Those are the channels, and what is going to be done, especially all the sales channels should be evaluated by the generator, and they need to select the most advantageous one for themselves. And how those channels can be evaluated. There are many different factors affecting the channels. The first one is the market developments, and the second one is the characteristics or features of the power plant. What are the market developments? If you are talking about sales to day-ahead market, then first of all, you should know about the relevant regulation and their amendments, because the regulation is implementing regulation, and those amendments are affecting your sales. It can lead to disadvantages and advantages. And another one is about the power plants that you cannot control the generation, and you need to follow the price differences. Another one, in 2015, there's going to be the intraday market, and then it has an effect on the generators, so the effect must be evaluated carefully. And also, there are prices and other factors affecting the prices. You need to evaluate them. What are the main factors? 4 factors: natural gas supply and price, increase in generation capacity, consumption increased trend in Turkey, and the changes in the generation levels of the hydropower plants. Actually, the prices are affected by those type of factors. Another channel is the bilateral agreement. If there's going to be a bilateral agreement, then of course you need to take into consideration the OTC prices and the natural tariffs. And finally, if I'm going to sell my energy to the guarantee mechanism, then there is a need for USD and Turkish lira parity, which is under control. Especially here, this is the regulation, and this one is the draft regulation published by or issued by the Energy Markets Regulatory Board, and their impact on the power plants. Look, first of all, there is a concept responsible for balance, and especially it has a negative effect on the power plants. And being in that group, and if there are many wind power plants in that group, and when they come together, and if you create such a group, then it's possible for you to minimize the imbalance. And this concept is removed in the draft new regulation, so it has it will, have a negative effect on it. And the other one is a calculation of the real deviation amount and price. As the generators, especially, we know that there are deviations in our generation because of the wind, and in terms of positive or negative directions, we experience imbalance. And in the draft new regulation, it is actually going to be increased from 5% to 7%. So this has a negative effect, of course. And the third part is about test generations. I'm sorry, it's about the real deviations. Especially, there are the values that are needed to be included in the system. And if they are not included in, it's a problem, and the draft regulation has such a part, in additional part. You have a power plant of 50 megawatt installed capacity, and your finalized expectation of wind is 20 meters per second. And according to your power curve, the electrical energy generated, this is full load 50 megawatt. But in real time, 1 day later, when the wind rate is 25, then the turbines actually are expected to have full capacity. Then it means that zero production. Then especially this is reflected in the formulation, and it is 0.3% negative effect on you. There are many new negative approaches in the draft regulation. Despite those type of things, cannot be said that is there any other positive things? Yes, there are positive also things. This is the test generation. And before the provisional acceptance, the generation of electricity is again calculated and taken into account. All the test generation is included in your income account. The third one is the intraday market, and with the new regulation we will have the intraday market. And here we will have the chance to make those type of assumptions later. And also you need to have have a strong estimation model for your generation. And you need to control the market barter prices, because while you are selecting your channel to sell, you need to pay attention to it. And there are two different prices in the market. First one is the market barter price. The other one is the system marginal price. And there is the imbalance especially, and we have deviations in our estimations. And despite, because of those differences in here, then we have more imbalance. And as you can see in this table, in the year 2014, there is a maximum market barter price, and the marginal price, there is 377 liras of difference, and this is a big difference. And this is actually an average, and when we look at it, this is 13 and 14 Turkish lira, so we need to be very careful in our estimations.
Gün öncesi piyasasına satmayabilirsiniz. İkili anlaşmalar
Within the framework of the mutual agreements, there can be other suppliers that you can sell to. And of course, for that, all of your prices should be followable and should be interpretable. Finally, if you decide to sell, this time you need to observe the changes in the USD Turkish lira parities. Between 2013 and 14, you can see the changes in the parity. Of course, market evolution is something that will affect our sales channels. Plus, our switchboard features will have an effective factor. For instance, when there is a production profile and a factor of capacity in the PowerPoint, there can be some peak hours that are doing very high capacities. Sometimes during summer times, the production can be quite high, so there might be seasonal differences. In this respect, maybe your electricity efficiency can be interpreted in the day-ahead market. The best choice that you're making is the one that you've made. As a matter of fact, you've made the best decision in investing into that field. Thank you.
Piyasa tarafında
Thank you very much for these remarks on the market side, and the debate has been quite exciting, I have to say. And we've also given you some general information about how the system runs. Also, he is a member of the Derivatives Management Board, and he has brought up the issues. And has already explained us the dynamics of the market. Now it's Burak to speak now. Burak Kuyan. Good afternoon. As you said, Mr. Moderator, there is not much left to say for me, but I'll do my best. The panel, I think, is the most important panel for the wind investors. The imbalances and the costs of these imbalances in the wind industry. 2014 has been a challenging year for Turkey, as you have guessed. The drought of the century in terms of wind, this is a year of imbalance in terms of the wind supply, but this pushes us into some decisions. But the most important decision is the system maker's decision about the wind power plants. Are the wind power plants a player, or are they just a part of the renewables department? In our power plants for the last 2 years since we have handed over, we've preferred to be a market player, although we've had some challenges. And about those challenges, I will try to give you some of our opinions. But before all, I have to say that if we have a target of achieving 20,000 megawatts of wind energy by 2023, I think that the existing structure will not be carrying us towards that direction, because there are some challenges that really impact the profitability, I have to say, and these factors need to be dealt with. You know that wind is using a natural source, but not just the wind. I mean, solar, river-type power plants. These are all based on nature and natural events. And one thing I have to react to is that I wish this $195 prices could be caught up with the producers, but these are mostly for biomass, geothermal. So 2013 US dollar exchange rate in average is 1.90 Turkish liras, and the price that can be achieved by wind is 147 liras. 155 liras of market prices there. I mean, this is not just enough for you because it pushes you into the market player direction. This has been the case in the previous years, but this is not just based on the fluctuations of the US dollar exchange rates. In 2014, with the increasing US dollar exchange rate, YEKDEM has started to be a better alternative for the wind producers. And when compared to the previous years, the attendance to that program has increased. What are the problems? It started in 2005, and we're speaking about a period of 10 years. Some of the players will need to become players in the system. So the time for renewables is about to end. I mean, you have a period of 10 years. If it's not extended, you have to become a system player. What will happen if you're a system player? How does the system work? What are the challenges? Now, every morning when we come up, we take our wind forecasts at 10 a.m. We are currently working with about 9 different companies, some of them at the trial stage. We have our own modules. We get some experimental figures from various companies. We enter the figures into the system at 10:30, and then we try to estimate the wind speed of the next 36 hours, which is not very easy. I mean, even in the forecasts of 1 hour, there might be deviations. There was a very nice model that was developed by RITM. It still needs to be developed because the accuracy rates for the wind forecasts may be changing up to 50, 67, 70%. And when you come up to a level where you have some limitations, there can be very major risks for the market players. And for the profitability analysis of the investors, these are constituting major risks. We, as the wind producers, we cannot manipulate the system even if we would like to. We can just switch off the power plant. If the wind is there, we will be generating. If it's not there, we won't be generating, and that's it. As I said before about the profile, we have a problem. I mean, we are working round the clock, all the days of the week, all the days of the year. It doesn't matter if it's holiday or not, because whenever there is the wind, we start producing. Otherwise, there will be extra cost attached. But we knew it as the investors. But there might be some extra imbalances of the system, which will push us into the other challenges, which I think will need to be solved in the coming period. Turkish electricity generation company is a very transparent, is a very nice company that is working on a proper basis. In the past, we had problems in receiving information, but now together with the new system, there has been a significant improvement into the system where we have a more transparent system. I believe with this new system, we'll have a better functioning with the transparency coming in. Well then, all of these challenges, and we've said that, okay, after these challenges, probably the new regulations will be just contributing to reducing the energy dependency of Turkey to abroad, which will be favoring us, we hoped. And we were expecting more favorable regulations, but when you take a look at it at depth for the draft regulation, there are very nice alternatives, as we said, but there are some extra 2% burden for imbalances. If there's a 2% deviation, it will come up to 3% extra. So the figure is, I can give you the dates as well, 28th of September 2014, between 6 to 8 p.m. Intra-market prices is 0 TL megawatt per hour. So wind power plant, when it produces electricity, it sells 0 lira of electricity. Okay, we know it, we accept it. But the new regulation says if you're producing extra in these hours, if it's 0 lira, you should just fine me. I mean, like out of my pocket. I mean, this is just one thing that needs to be discussed about the system. But there's one request we'd like to raise: the regulations that will be enacted will always need to be prepared in mutual consensus with the market players. Of course, we would extend any support that we can, but here, of course, in renewable energy resources like the wind, we should pave the way for them so that Turkey will be catching up with the 2023 targets and will be reducing the dependency, import dependency, which is a major problem for the current deficit problem of Turkey. Now, we've taken a look at Europe in different parts of the globe. There are different alternatives. The most important example is Estonia. Now, when you just get into details, there is not a very high feed-in tariff. There is a lower feed-in tariff, but they would make you a market player. For every kilowatt hour produced, you get a fixed price on top of which you get also they're paying other costs about the imbalances, but then at least for this way, they're paving the way for renewables. Plus, there are some other, countries like Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Slovenia. These are, again, the countries that would support the players, that would make the wind power plants to become market players. They're providing some incentives. On the other side, as much as possible, we can do the same in Turkey. I think this will be paving us the way. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Burak. Now, this brings us to the Q&A part. Now, I have a question. If one company has more than one power plant, and if it's wind, they will be considered within the same group of balances. and there is no requisite of, creating this group. And within, when you are just making a reconciliation, it's a portfolio reconciliation. That I had to clarify. This is a problem, or this might be a concern that the panelists are uttering. Yes, there are some, of course, different companies that these participants may be represented in, but of course we better explain the reasons for these balances, because sometimes when we have different invoices coming up, in return for these invoices, we don't have the chance of getting a guarantee. The party that is in charge of the balance will be giving the guarantee, but any other member, if they have another invoice whatsoever, we have problems in collecting that invoice. This is one of the reasons. And another thing I would like to mention about Kargüp. Now, it's within the existing legislation, a reconciliation factor, but we want to take it into assessment, and the reason is not about renewables or wind, which I have to say it by rather than 5 or 10%, it's 90% being in practice. If any major power plant is not following those requirements, they will not be able to make any transaction, then the systems operator will be considered not to have fulfilled the production to consumption balance. Let's say 500 megawatts we have given a production program. Very easily they can come up to 700 megawatts for production. What happens? 200 megawatt of capacity will develop in favor of another market player, which would cause an eventual decrease of the price. And if it's an honest way of working, if the company is working on a dual contract, here, of course, there will be a deception factor. So as to avoid this deception, we have made some modifications, as you have seen. Of course, the draft of the regulation was also available to the market participants. Their opinions were taken, and we will start reviewing it next week. Of course, we are aware of the problems in terms of market attendance, and these are undeniable problems because, as you know, wind energy is a source that is very difficult to forecast upon. Therefore, the incentives being lowered so as to overcome the imbalances. Whatever the measures can be taken so as to create a mechanism for normalizing. Of course, this would take a further debate, also putting all the pros and cons on the table with the market players, with the regulator, with the regulatory authority, and of course with the ministry. We can have all the counterparts being involved in the debate. And of course, I think that we can make a final touch. And the renewable energy resources are inevitable. These are not very easy resources that we can leave aside. We don't have to hurry, but still, this excitement is quite important, in my opinion. We should all have that excitement. The panel has finished in a very good timing, so we have a lot of time for the questions and answers. If you would like to be involved in this excitement, we can get the questions, of course.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much for this invitation to ask a question. We are since 20 years in the wind energy business, following the Turkish market since 10 years. And in consequence of the problematic to feed in renewable energy into the grid, and especially the wind energy in Turkey, we are focused on battery storage. We are focused on vanadium redox battery storage systems between 100 kilowatt and 10 megawatt hours. Yeah? So there's a very large capability of storing energy and electricity. We have also studied the Turkish grid code, what was previously limited to 5% of energy variation in a 1 minute schedule. And as I heard now from Uguday Bey, it's supposed to be increased to 7%, which is still a very strong criteria. For example, our colleagues in Germany, we asked them about this criteria, they don't have any criteria. Until now, you can feed in as much electricity the wind turbine produces directly into the grid. We have studied other markets with 50 megawatt wind farm in China to fulfill the 10% criteria. This means the wind farm is cutted if it's producing more than 10% variation per minute. And this wind farm was able, after installing battery system, to produce 36% more electricity because the short-term variation of the electricity production by the wind turbines, what is not measured until now. The wind measurements and the wind turbine SCADA systems are only focused on 10 minutes data. Yeah? So the 1 minute data collection and forecast how much electricity is lost currently is not properly done. So we are working on this topic. If anybody has also this request or already analyzed, please let us know. And this is the first application we see here, which is necessary for, let's say, take the power out of the wind with the wind turbine and produce it into electricity. Because this is a great unknown box, what is a huge amount of electricity, what can be produced extra, but due to the limits of the Turkish grid code, is not fed into the grid. Yeah, this is the first application we see here, also commercially calculated. And the second coming out of such system installation is what Bunak Bey was talking about. During the forecast, you have a gap of forecasted electricity and produced electricity. This may vary a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, or day by day, and you can use such system, what you're already operating to fulfill the peak shave or the ramp-up, ramp-down due to the grid criteria for the next application, which means optimizing the pricing according to the high pricing you can have for the wind energy if you're forecasting right or if you're delivering on demand. I want to mention that and also discuss about the grid code and your experience and how do you see such developments. Yeah? Çok teşekkürler.
Bataryalarla beraber
Kombinasyon.
dengeleyebilirsin diyor.
Evet.
O konuda bir
Teknik çözümler de olduğunu bize hatırlattı.
Thank you very much for reminding us that there are some possibilities for technical solutions. Of course, within our systems, we don't have the battery systems yet involved, but that wouldn't necessarily mean that they will not be in the play, because all around the globe, the battery systems are being used, and the grid, particularly in the production side, can be used both in terms of the stability of the winds and in terms of the involvement of the production facilities in their involvement in the primary production. So we're working on it. These kind of technical solutions, I think, will be supporting us in that direction. Thank you very much for that contribution. Any question or contribution from the participants? Do we have anything else? I don't see any show of hands, so I think everything has been quite crystal clear and we understand everything. So thank you very much for attending the session. And also we would like to thank the panelists for sharing their knowledge and experiences.